Hi everyone, it's Margaret here with 60 Lots of complexity as we get older, and I want to share with you today a conversation about estrangement. Now, there's like two sides to this conversation that are personal to me. One is that I have been involved in estrangement situation with family members where I made the decision that it was best not to communicate anymore. Now, I won't go into all the details, but so I've been dealing with that myself, and have dealt with it over the years. But then there's the estrangement that I think a lot of you are dealing with, and that is when someone just stops calling you. Adult child, a friend perhaps that you thought was always going to be there, someone that you always felt would be by your side. Maybe it's a partner, someone that you spent years with, and suddenly there's a divorce, and or even passing, where those people just are not visible in your life anymore, and there's that emptiness. Now, I want to talk about estrangement with adult children specifically, because I think that's where a lot of people in our community are coming from, with great grief and regret and sadness. And I think that the two scenarios I've talked about are kind of uniquely different. We maybe talk about them in a separate conversation. But when you make a decision to not see someone, when you make a decision to cut off communication with someone, you have made that decision. You know why you did it. You've got the justification. You take a very difficult step sometimes of doing that, but it's under your control. When somebody leaves you, when they stop calling, they don't want to be part of your life, they do not want to include you in their lives anymore, that's a different story. Because many times you don't understand why it happened. You know why it happened, and you wish there were magic words, or you wish there were things you could do or say that would, make it better, change the situation. And sometimes things have gone too far that's just not ever going to be the case. But I think that those that scenario of where people are not contacting you and you're feeling, completely abandoned is hard. You're living through estrangement. You're not to blame. This whole thing is about peace. And how do we find peace? So how do you stop the disconnection and then really, follow the Mel Robbins advice of let them go, let them have their life, let them move on. I think that even though it's become a bit of a cliche, and it's a little bit, in my opinion, it's not superficial. It's just that it's harder than it sounds. Just to say, oh, well, let them go. It's just not that easy. And even though I will support the Mel Robbins train of thinking around let them, that it's not as easy. So let's try to look at holding on to things really can hurt you as much as it hurts anybody else, and what you can do in a really actionable way to build a life outside of a separation, beyond an estrangement. Okay, how are you dealing with it? I've asked this question so many times on our 16Me community, and I've found that a lot of people are doing it in different ways. One is that you just simply gather another person or community of people, you share the story, you work it through, you do the tears, you do the crying, and then you say, I really have got to let that person go, or those people go. Another thing that a lot of people do is try to compromise. They try to find a way to kind of find okay, you don't want me to be involved in this part of your life, but can I be involved in the life of the grandchildren? Can I see my grandchildren? Can I be part of their lives? And sometimes that works. That works where you can say, we don't want you involved in this aspect of our lives. We don't want you to, we can't accept or forgive what happened that made you impact my life. But with the grandkids, we're going to give you some opportunity to, it's only fair. And I mean, I can see there's like a spectrum, of, recognizing that there are things that you can control and things that they control, and kind of being at peace with what is given, what is offered, what is available. Because sometimes, and this actually, I know some people where this has happened, where you start off just like, okay, you can watch, can have the children, be a part of the children's lives, you contribute to their education, you can be practically helpful by helping out or whatever, but at the same time, just that proximity and that help and that sense of, participation and caring and loving has, will then sort of soften the edges of what else could have happened. And I mean, I'm still a great believer in communication. So if you can, have a conversation, have a chat, figure out what really is at the heart of this. Now, let's put some scenarios together here. I mean, one scenario is if your son marries a woman, they have children. The woman doesn't like you. The daughter-in-law just doesn't like you. You don't get on. They don't want you to be part of their lives. They've, put the guidelines down, and the mama will always win, and that's fair. Well, is it fair? I don't know if it's fair, but it's what it is. Because, you were a mom, you had that child, you know how protective you might have been, or how you, put boundaries around a relationship. Say, for example, you were married to somebody that was not good for the children, so you left, you divorced, you went on. That, of course, has damaged your child, and that's not going to make them feel very, secure about their childhood, and there might have been, all kinds of trauma associated with that. They can't blame the other person. They may be not around anymore, or even not alive. You're left with it. You're taking the blame for everything that happened for them as a child. Now, it's not about blame or responsibility. It's just reality. If that was the situation, you maybe got out of it as fast as you could and tried to protect the children, but it wasn't enough. They still remember, and they still cannot face having that communication with you. I'm talking really sensitive stuff here, guys, and I know that there's probably a lot of women watching this thinking, easy for you, Margaret, or just whatever. I can feel that in my heart as I'm saying these words, but I'm just trying to be helpful in helping us to all understand why this kind of separation occurs. Now, so that kind of scenario, and by the way, it doesn't have to be your son marrying a woman that doesn't agree with you or doesn't have the same beliefs or whatever. It could be your daughter marrying a man who also wants to be more dominant in the family, decisions, and doesn't want you to be part of that. It's really, 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 really complicated. So I think that the key thing here, though, is that letting them be what they want to be is important. It's super, super important. And that gives you a release, that immediate horrible pressure. But there's the next part, which I think Mel Robbins now is talking about. And I think it's a really important next step. And that is I let them, they've made the decision, whether it was because of childhood trauma, because of something I did, some mistake I made, in quotes, something that I did that I regret. It's now you've made the decision to let them choose the way that you're going to be related. You can see the grandchildren or not. We're moving to another country, city, whatever. You're never going to see us again, and that's it. They have made their decision, and you've got to let them. But then you've got to let you. You've got to let you rebuild a life. And I know I know that all the people that write about this say this is the way forward. You've got to, start the new hobbies. You've got to, join the community groups. You've got to volunteer, all these things. And you just don't feel like it. You just don't feel like doing that at all. You're not healed. You're feeling the pain of regret, of guilt, of shame, of sadness. And you need to really understand that that's not going to be an easy transition to a new you. But you've got to let yourself have hope. Of course I promote 60andMe because I believe in what we're doing here, but I think this is one of the strongest communities that you can connect with and have a conversation with people about these kinds of topics. The women in our group, in our community, are very honest and open, and just come and join some of the private groups, the Patreon group, where we have live shows. Join our Facebook conversations. There's articles all the time about these types of things, and reach out for help. If you are not coping, go and get some other help, please. I know it's expensive sometimes to get, a counselor or a psychiatrist or help, but you've got to get some help to work through this step. You've got a hurdle that you're trying to overcome. So if you've had a family estrangement, I focus pretty strongly in this conversation about children, adult children, but it could be another person, it could be a parent, it could be your parents, it could be a friend or someone, like I mentioned earlier, that's no longer in your world. But tell us about it. Tell us what you did. Tell us how you got through it. And if you've got any resources, I know people have recommended some books, and I probably should try to find those and put them in the description underneath the video so that there's your words that you can read to give you some context and some strength. I know not everyone's into ChatGPT and other Gemini and other AI voices, but they are pulling on resources from the web, from the internet that might be helpful to you. They're not individuals out to get you. They are just simply search engines. So if you're looking for help online, please go and get it. Okay. I really appreciate this. Now, I'm inviting you to leave your comments below. Now, please be careful, of course, because this is this is an open platform on YouTube. And if you're watching this on Instagram or anywhere else, it's a public setting. So don't go into too many personal details. In my opinion, if you want to connect with someone, I would suggest you come and join our live shows on our Patreon group. That's a private group, or just find yourself a private place to talk, because it's really, really important that you be able to share. And of course, if you want to reach out to me personally, please do that too. And you can always leave messages and notes in these comments. I really want to help because I know how big a deal it is. Another time we'll talk about the situation that I went through, and when you make the decision to separate. But maybe I mention it because maybe that gives you some insight into why another person might not want to connect with you anymore. I know it's hard. My heart goes out to all of you that are dealing with this, but please know that we're by your side here. We're all in this journey together, seriously, and we're here to help and be supportive. Okay, take really good care of yourselves, please, and stay in touch, and know that we're here. Leave some comments below so that we can get at least an idea of who's dealing with what. Okay, take care, guys.